As Gladstone had remarked in 1851,
I say fearlessly, whatever may be the difference of opinion in this House as to the admission of Jews to political privilege, that no person could dare to stand up among us and allege his religion as a ground for mistrust or for the denial of justice without drawing down upon himself from all quarters of the House alike universal scorn and indignation.
between 1858 and 1945, 7 Rothschilds became MPs. And along with their relatives, the Cohens, the Goldsmiths, the Samuels, the Montefiores and others, the families became known as the cousinhood. Since 1858, Parliament has never been without Jewish members. But because the Conservatives had rejected Jewish emancipation, all the original Jewish MPs were liberals. This was despite Benjamin Disraeli, the founder of the modern Conservative Party, its leader and twice Prime Minister being Jewish by birth. It took until 1874 for a Nottinghamshire coal mine owner called Saul Isaac to become the first Jewish Tory. With education and justice at the heart of Jewish ethos, many Jews became lawyers and would represent the downtrodden masses. They wanted to do the same as MPs.
Jewish MPs have always represented their poorer constituents with great care. They also have the advantage of the Jewish religion having an enormous body of law, so that when they were representing their constituents in Parliament, their affection for the law stood them in very good stead.
John Simon, Liberal, became the first Jewish judge in Britain. He was born in Jamaica and took on the very unfashionable responsibility of supporting the rights of black people. As MPs, these parliamentarians also increased their influence within the Jewish communities. This was certainly true of Lionel Cohen, who helped to bring all 3 major synagogues together in 1870 to form the United Synagogue, and Samuel Montague MP, who formed the Federation of Synagogues. The Jewish MPs represented their electorate. The number of Jewish votes was insignificantly small. Only 35,000 British people were Jewish. They were more or less allowed to participate in every walk of life by 1880, even some golf clubs. Benjamin Disraeli climbed to what he called the top of the greasy pole. He was elected Prime Minister in 1868 and then again in 1874. He stood for a no-nonsense foreign policy to clear the Russians from Asia and created Queen Victoria's title as Empress of India. And when Disraeli wanted Britain to control the Suez Canal, he turned to the Rothschilds for the £4 million that was needed. The first ever Jewish government minister was Solicitor General George Jessel in 1880. In 1885, Nathaniel Rothschild became the first ever Jewish peer. Just as well, because in 1890, no, not 1995, Barings Bank was about to collapse. The city was about to go into freefall, and it was Rothschild who chaired a committee of bankers who bailed Barings out. With widespread massacres of Jews in Russia and Poland, more than 200,000 were to flee to the safety offered by the United Kingdom from 1880 to 1914. Most only spoke Yiddish, but were soon to learn English and British ways. Samuel Montague, MP, spoke Yiddish and represented Whitechapel in the East End of London. The influx of refugees caused a great deal of concern. There was pressure to pass an Aliens Act to stop them coming, even though many Jews were employed in comparatively new trades such as mass tailoring and cigar making. Most Jewish MPs voted along party lines, so there was little favoritism due to faith. The Aliens Act wasn't introduced until 1905. Most Jewish politicians had put their party and their constituents first, as they were elected to do. In 1906, the Liberals won a landslide victory promising major changes. 18 Jewish MPs were elected, including 3 Conservatives. But the Tories dominated the Lords and rejected every piece of legislation from the Liberals. In 1909, Lloyd George had the audacity to raise income tax from 5 to 6 pence. Nathaniel Rothschild led howls of protest from the city, who called it a robber's budget. Up until 1910, many bills that were passed by the Commons would not be passed by the Lords, and therefore the monarch, so the Lords effectively controlled the country. That was until the first Parliament Act of 1911, which asserted the supremacy of the Commons over the Lords. MPs were now being paid, and this meant that the working classes were more able to participate in government. More Jews could now enter politics. They joined the Liberal Party and introduced laws helping the poor. This was the foundation of the modern welfare state. They ensured workers could receive sick pay and unemployment benefit. They made a great difference to children's health, education, and general welfare, and made it possible for a later government to bring in the National Health Service. They also introduced the country's first Old Age Pension Act, which the Jewish MP Herbert Jessel carried through the Commons. Pensioners would now receive 2 shillings a week if single, or a whopping 7 and 6 if married. But remarriage was uncommon and unlikely in most cases. Jessel was later responsible for introducing the driving license. Rufus Isaacs was the son of a Covent Garden fruit merchant, but he ran away to become a ship's cabin boy. He entered the Commons in 1904, worked hard with Lloyd George to become Attorney General and then Lord Chief Justice. In 1921, he became Viceroy of India. He also had time for a spot of hunting.
Hunting tigers out in India, out in India, yeah.
And 5 years later, he was made Marquess of Reading, the highest rank in the peerage reached by a British Jew. At the end of the 19th century, the concept of Zionism was gaining momentum. Many Jewish MPs disliked the idea because they were in no doubt of their loyalty to Britain and didn't want it questioned. The Jewish community was split on the issue, but in 1917 the government issued its Balfour Declaration, favoring the re-establishment of a Jewish homeland. It was part of a strategy to get American entry into the First World War. Jewish MPs joined up and rose to high positions in the forces. Jews fought disproportionately for Britain in the First World War. 50,000 fought from a population of only 250,000. That's 1/5 of all British Jews. And 10,000 died on the battlefields. During the war, the Jewish Welshman Alfred Mond became Minister of Health. And in 1916, Edwin Montagu became Minister of Munitions and went on to oppose the Balfour Declaration. Robert GMP was one of the most distinguished Jewish soldiers in the British Army in World War I. He was awarded the Victoria Cross for heroism on the Western Front in 1917. When his headquarters was overrun, he escaped his German guards, found an enemy machine gun crew attacking the British, and with a revolver in each hand, he charged the placement, killed 8 Germans, and silenced the attack.